London wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. Your one-stop shop for professional wrestling, insight, news, and reviews on a daily basis. And today, it's Wednesday, we're talking some of the news, but before we do, I need to bring somebody in really quickly, because if you guys are watching the show on Monday, this person teased that he had bought something. He had bought a piece of WWE history, and well, it made us all very, very intrigued. Well, it has now arrived, and he is here to tell us what it is. Hello, Soul. Well, how's everything going? And well, what is it?
Wow. I get to open the show, and this has never happened before. I feel honored and blessed. But besides that, in my hair, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is a state. This is not what I want to be on for the real. Terrible. God, we'll have to redo this now. Oh, God. Right. Besides that, yes, I do have a piece of NXT UK history, as I mentioned before. Now, this piece was actually, bought from a guest of mine on a Soul Session, which is very fun to say. But what this piece of, it is, well, this piece of history has been used in 2 NXT UK tag team title matches.
Oh.
This piece of history as well has been, worn by a former NXT UK tag team champions. What I have with me, folks, is in-ring gear worn by former NXT UK tag team champion Mark Andrews, member of
Wow.
Signed as well. So if you want to see where this particular gear was used on, this gear was used on 2 episodes of NXT where him and Wild Boar challenged for the NXT tag team titles against, I think it was Jensen and Brooks. So yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Quite amazing to have this, a piece of NXT UK history used in a WWE title match as well. So, if ever we have a WWE Most Wanted Treasures UK version, maybe you'll see me there trying to haggle Mick Foley for a couple of quid. But you know what? This is real cool to have. I'm going to get this displayed and everything. It has, Mark Andrews' signature or logo, the MA92 down this side, and the Subculture logo as well. This gear has also been used outside of WWE as well. I think OTT has been used in as well, and a few other indie promotions here in the UK. So I'm going to get this all displayed. I've got, an NXT tag team replica here with me as well, which I'll have displayed in the background as well. I'm just really blessed to have this. It's kind of just a cool piece of, WWE history.
It absolutely is. That is sick. And Mark Andrews, shout out to him as well. A top guy from right where I live in Wales, actually. He's from like half an hour from where I'm from. But yeah, so that is certainly a sick get. David Marge, he's excited by it as well. We have Wrestle Takes Cameron in the chat. Hello to you, Cameron. And yeah, thank you for showing that, Soul. And I hope you have a great day. But now,
I'm going to get some ribs, brother. But of course, as well, I will say that first topic there is correct. It should be big, go home. He's bringing it home. It's coming home. Sorry, England. We actually get to have that song play and be relevant for the last time in 20 years. Get it?
The Euro's coming home. It's coming home.
It's it's coming home to the right place in the United Kingdom because, but come July 4th, it'll be Independence Day. If you're in the UK, you know why that's reveling right now. But hey, folks, lads, good luck with the daily. I'll see you next time. I'm going to have my ribs and enjoy my piece of WWE history.
Have a great day, Soul. But now it's time for me to introduce the co-host of the show, Clark Taylor. How are you, Clark?
What's going on? I just hope Soul doesn't use those as a napkin for the ribs. That would be a bad idea when you just got them. But I'm fired up to be here on a Wednesday. I'm fired up to talk about our list of topics. And that was an awesome piece of history there from Soul. So let's get right into it, though.
Absolutely is. We have Melissa in the chat saying she's watching from a restaurant because she just couldn't miss the show. Shout out to you, Melissa.
Dedication, Melissa.
I know, exactly. That is what we love to hear. We hope you're enjoying your meal as well. Josh Markowitz, shout out to Josh, is hyped. And David Marge is calling Soul the man. Absolutely, he is. But somebody who is also the man is the AEW Dynamite reviewer for Wrestling Republic, who is also joining us today, and that is David Sheldon. How are you, David?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for having me once again. It's been the 10 minutes from hell as I try and find my way for somewhere to do the show from. So I apologize in advance because I am next to a very, very loud vending machine. If you can hear that, I apologize. But yes, very excited to be here to talk through some really interesting topics and preview Dynamite as well. So yeah, let's get at it.
They got Skittles in the vending machine?
No Skittles in the vending machine.
Dang it.
No, well, that's disappointing. If they had Skittles, but no, in all seriousness, you can't hear the vending machine. We're all good. We're all good, David. Don't worry. We got Cameron in the chat saying that he saw my take about LA Knight where I said he was too old. Part of that is me joking because I've been going on about it for so long. But basically, it is true that somebody can't become a main event star if they're only going to be at the top for a couple of years. And the reason being is purely WWE won't earn as much money off them long term. So Gunther, he came on the main roster when he was quite a few years younger. I think he came to the main roster when he was 33. And now, yeah, he's late 30s, but he had a long IC title reign. He's established already. So I still think he's almost 5 years younger than LA Knight, I thought. But I mean, anyway, yeah, there's always an exception to the rule, like when you're over as LA Knight was. But let's talk about somebody who is a main event star. Let's talk about Drew McIntyre because he did an interview yesterday where he spoke about Clash at the Castle. And he said that he never thought that he'd ever be able to win a world championship in Glasgow. He never thought that would be on the cards. And now it is. And he doesn't want to waste that opportunity. But I'm going to be completely honest here. I think he 110%, even 1,000,000,000% should be, the one to dethrone Damian Priest. And I'll tell you why. Damian Priest, in my personal opinion, his title reign so far, at no fault of his own, has just felt completely pointless. I mean, this entire month, they've done nothing with him. They did the Jey Uso match, which was just very poorly built, in my opinion, to begin with. It was a good match. I presumed then they were going to have another match and continue building on the feud. They didn't. They just moved straight on. And now Damian Priest has been, staggering around on Raw doing backstage segments for the past few weeks. I mean, they've got nothing for him at a big pay-per-view like King and Queen of the Ring. They're then doing a feud with him with Drew McIntyre where they're both heels. It makes no sense to me one bit. I'm not a fan of it. And it just feels to me like WWE have no plans for Damian Priest and therefore put it on Drew McIntyre. Do Drew McIntyre versus CM Punk World Championship at SummerSlam. It makes sense and I'd quite like to see it. But Clark, are the comments going to hate me again? Am I wrong again? What's your thoughts on this? Because I'd love to hear them.
I think that you're, in a lot of ways, you could be right here. It adds up pretty perfectly. McIntyre, we're saying going into Mania, deserves this big moment in front of fans. How about his hometown fans? But in the words of one of my favorite commentators of all time, the great Lee Corso from College Game Day, not so fast, my friend. I think CM Punk putting the stop to McIntyre, somehow robbing him of that moment in his hometown, is the direction I might go. And I don't care what the comments say. They might hate me for that one. But I think if CM Punk goes in to Glasgow and has to basically be police escorted out of the building to safely get back to his hotel and then eventually to the airport to get out of there, it is something you can't really pass up because that rivalry in the long run is the bigger deal to me. I agree with you on Priest and the title. Maybe there's a way you work. Somehow McIntyre does win, but is still robbed of the moment because that part of the story, the not having the moment and chasing the big moment, I think might flip McIntyre back to being maybe an edgier, more sympathetic babyface, sort of like he was when he was chasing Lesnar. And that's something that I think would be interesting because as much as Punk is a great face, I think it's time for Punk to finally turn heel. I'd kind of like to see a double turn in some ways. And you could pull that off in Scotland. And that's where my head's at. I would not have an issue, though, if they just pull the trigger on Drew World Champion and Punk at SummerSlam, like you said, though. I think there's no bad choice when it comes to that.
Yeah. No, I think you are right there. And you mentioned, possible double turn. I'm going to be honest. I do love the idea of CM Punk screwing Drew McIntyre. It's just the bucking of Damian Priest. It seems directionless. It feels like they don't have a plan for him, but they have a plan for McIntyre. But the double turn, what you suggested, I don't even think you need to do it like that. You could literally do CM Punk screws Drew McIntyre. in Scotland. And CM Punk will be the biggest heel in the nation during that time, right? It'll be as if he was English. He'd be getting booed out of that building. But then when they go back to America, CM Punk, I think, will still get cheered, and Drew McIntyre will still get booed.
That's
Because it's really funny with Punk, where he is kind of a heel who everybody likes. Like, that's kind of just CM Punk. He's a bit of a, word we can't say, but everybody likes him. Meanwhile, Drew McIntyre is blatantly a heel, but he says a lot of truths. And it's because, we don't like him. That we like those truths, that we boo him. So in a way, they're just perfect polar opposites.
They are.
So yeah.
I don't necessarily think there's a bad scenario, but for lack of a better way to put it, they need to get Priest out of the equation. And poor Damian Priest, I think he's done great work and deserved the opportunity to win the title. But okay, you've had your time in the sun.
They really messed it up for him. It's no fault of his own. In fact, his work so far, he's locked the pod, he's looked like a champion, he's carried himself like a champion, he spoke like a champion, he's wrestled like a champion, but he's been booked like a mid-carder. I don't understand what they're doing with him. And I think the booking of both him and Cody's been poor, quite frankly, since they won the championships. I feel like Triple H has dropped the bag a little bit, but it doesn't really matter what I think, because I want to find out what David thinks. David, what about you? How are you feeling about all of this? Should Drew McIntyre win big in Scotland?
Well, I think that you can go either way with this, because I do think that Drew winning the title in Scotland would be a massive moment, especially given that the last Clash of the Castle he was obviously denied. I agree with you wholeheartedly on the Damian Priest thing. I think that he's been booked very, 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 very poorly as champion, but that is not his fault. And I think the response to that is not take the title off him, it's just book the man better, which is a simplistic way of putting it. But I really do think that Priest, as you said, looks the part. He's a really great champion, but they've got to treat him like it. And if they don't treat him like it, then you haven't got a chance before you start. I think that Drew versus Punk can happen with or without the title. I think the story is strong enough that it doesn't need the title, but the title would obviously add an extra layer, especially for Punk. You mentioned about the Punk being booed in Scotland and cheered in America. It reminds me a lot of MJF in Long Island, or or on the opposite way around, Shawn in Canada. There's certain places that will inevitably boo and cheer that kind of feel like outliers to the rest of the wrestling continuity, and I do think that would be the case with Punk as well. I think that they would boo him out the building in Scotland. It'd be great, but then when you went back to America, I don't think it would harm Punk if they want to keep him as a face, or if they wanted to turn him, they could do that as well. I still think, as much as I personally don't like Punk for reasons I've made very clear in the past, there's a lot of mileage on him as a face right now, and the crowd are really into him as a face. So I don't see the reason to turn him heel yet. But this is kind of a bit of a non-answer, really, because I just think, should he? I don't know, because I think there's arguments to be made both. I want to see Priest succeed, so I'm going to say, should he? Possibly not. Just because I'm holding out that they can turn this feud, they can turn this title reign around for Priest, because he is such a talent. But when you do nothing with him, you haven't got a chance, unfortunately.
Yeah, you are bang on right. It sucks. Like I was saying a minute ago, where he's got the talent, he's got it all, but you got to book him better. Like you really, really do. And the reason I say take the title off him is very simply because I don't think they have a plan. But I think they have a plan for McIntyre, and if they're not going to have a plan, it's just disastrous. But David Marge is saying Drew McIntyre is a 3-time world champion, and I feel like there's more left in the tank of Drew McIntyre. I agree with you, David, and I cannot wait for that eventual match between Punk and Drew McIntyre. It's going to be absolutely gold, no doubt about it. But I now want to move on to a subject which is in the news today quite a bit, and that is about, well, it's about not about Drew McIntyre. The wrong graphics up still. We just spoke about Drew McIntyre. It's about Warner Brothers Discovery and the fact that, depending on what media outlet you want to believe, whatever, right? We're not in that type of media business. We're in the wrestling media business. And I've just knocked my stand over. God,
Nice.
my camera's not on there anymore. But basically, they might be losing the NBA. Warner Brothers Discovery, TBS, TNT, they might be losing the NBA, which is currently their most viewed product. It is the biggest thing on their network. So if they lose it, well, on paper, that's a big loss. Now, the argument is, if they lose that, will they spend more money on things such as AEW to ensure that they keep it and to keep those viewers on their network when they are pretty much certain to lose other viewers? Clark, do you think if the NBA does indeed leave Warner Brothers Discovery, do you reckon this is going to be a positive or a negative for AEW overall? I know it's going to be a bit of each, but if you had to say positive or negative, which direction are you going?
So obviously you've got a few times the lead in from the NBA pops a big number kind of artificially because AEW immediately follows it, but it still pops a big number. They'll lose that, but generally it's beneficial. They're not losing college basketball and they're not losing hockey, which they have both of. The result will be basically that less often Dynamite and Collision are affected by the NBA schedule and by the NBA playoffs specifically, or even the in-season tournament that they moved Dynamite around a few times. So I guess generally I would say positive if I had to pick one of the two, but not to totally cop out of this one, but it is a little bit of both, Ben. It really is. It's just one of those things where I know it's like, it's not beneficial for the network, but AEW won't be affected by the NBA anymore. So yeah, there's one positive, there's one negative there. I mean, I'm going to go with positive. Okay. I'm going to go with positive. It's positive for AEW. Yes. It gives more flexibility scheduling wise too.
Yeah, no, it's true. The positives are more flexibility with scheduling, potentially more money, which would be the big one if that is true.
Yeah.
The negatives is that network. I'd actually love to know this because I'm not American. I don't know about it. Do you have to specifically pay for TNT on TBS, or is it like in the same subscription as everything else?
TNT became what essentially would have been considered basic cable in the past.
Okay.
In the last few years, it used to be an extra channel. Like, for example, at least regionally in Southern California, and the channels are slightly different nationwide, depending on what region you're in. But TNT used to I believe it was channel 18, and it moved to channel 3.
Oh, okay.
And so like for us, CBS is 2, NBC is 4, ABC is 7, Fox is 11, ESPN's 15. Right? Like
low down on the list.
Those are the ones that you get though, like those first 15 are what you would get if you got like the most basic cable package. The CW is 5.
So they're not going to lose viewers, basically. So if they lose the NBA, they're not necessarily, people aren't going to lose access to TNT. Right. They're not going to be like, oh, I need to save a bit of money here. NBA's not on it anymore.
Yeah, it's not a subscription-based platform, really. No, they're like a CBS or an NBC. They're just a channel you get with whichever cable service or provider you use. And it's also, by the way, that is our local cable channels that I just gave, but they're very similar depending on which provider you use. Those top 15 that just slides around in certain places.
Fair enough. I mean, well, there we are then. I think it probably is more of a positive than a negative, because the only negative is they're losing, the lead in numbers from when the NBA's before them. But
they'll have hockey now. Because hockey's new too, so and that's not going to be quite the same. But to be honest,
it's hot right now.
Generally, the hockey fan might be more inclined to be interested in wrestling, just given the physicality of the
fighting,
sport by comparison to, right? I mean, you have fights in hockey. Like, that's just a random side note. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm an NBA fan and an NHL fan and a huge pro wrestling fan, but not everybody is,
Yeah. You can see somebody get suplexed on the ice rink and then suplexed on the apron. Yeah. It certainly will be an interesting, they need to change their logo, TNT and TBS, to just a fighting thing, whatever. Yeah. But TL.3118 is saying he loves NBA and TNT. He doesn't want it to go. I mean,
I get it.
Yeah.
Barkley and the bald guys, Ernie Johnson, Barkley, Shaq and Kenny the Jet Smith is an iconic crew. It's one of the best like pregame crews in all of sports broadcasting. I couldn't agree more.
Oh, that is sick. That is unfortunate to see it go. But one thing which will not be going anytime soon is Next Level. Now, if you guys don't know what Next Level are, basically they've put all our social media links together in one place, and that place is nxconnect.me/Wrestling Republic to see all our content across all platforms, all linked in one place. It's easy, it's simple, it's also free. And oh, just in case that isn't enough, they also have an app where you can see a thriving wrestling community, exclusive wrestling content, and oh, some giveaways as well. All you need to do is hit that link, scroll down to the bottom, and you can enter any giveaways which are currently on. I believe the WWE Shop $100 gift voucher one is still ongoing as well. So that's a no-brainer. Guys, it's free. Just click the link, scroll down to the bottom. You can see about the giveaways. You can see about everything. It's simple as that. nxconnect.me/Wrestling Republic to see all our content across all platforms, all linked in one place. But on that note, let's move on to the next topic because, David, I need to bring you back in for a second because I'm not sure if you saw, but there was something, rather interesting said in an interview in the last couple of days because Swerve Strickland was asked about Lucha Underground and if it could work in this day and age. And in that interview, he said, I don't think it could because fans nowadays are too quick to, dissect things, to moan about things on social media, all of this stuff. He thinks there's too much wrestling out there. He doesn't think it would work. But I disagree with Swerve Strickland completely. Lucha Underground is so different, was so different to everything else that I actually think it would do better right now when there's so much wrestling that's kind of similar. For something to just, go against it or go against the grain like Lucha Underground did, I think it would work. And let's not act like Lucha Underground was in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was in the late 2010s. Like, social media existed then and people could moan about it then. So I didn't agree with him. But David, did you?
No, I don't agree with him either. I agree with you, Ben. I was not a wrestling fan. I was not a wrestling fan beyond WWE when Lucha Underground was on. So I've only been able to kind of catch up on things. It's also really hard to catch up on Lucha Underground now because of how painful some of the streaming things are in the UK to try and find it. But I have seen bits and I am obsessed and I want to try and find more and more and more because I love wrestling storytelling. I love cinematic wrestling. I love things that have that kind of ongoing like television narrative. And I think that is what makes Lucha Underground stand out. And I agree. I think that we have to look at if we look at Bray Wyatt, for example, and we look at how enraptured and the Uncle Howdy and stuff like that right now, and how enraptured people are in that storytelling stuff and the bloodline and all the rest of it. Yes, Lucha Underground was very silly, but in places, but like that hyper cinematic storytelling, I think would really work in a wrestling company. And actually, while Swerve doubts the Lucha Underground return, I know that Freddie Prinze Jr. is launching his wrestling promotion at some point, in the next 300 years, given how long I've heard it rumored for. But when he's spoken about it to various interviewers, the thing he keeps bringing up is the fact that he wants it more cinematic and storytelling based, which sounded to me a lot like Lucha Underground. So I do think that at the very least there will be some form of it coming soon again, and I think there would be an appetite for it, and I think that I would love to see something like Lucha Underground, as like you said, Ben, as a huge palate cleanser to the current wrestling formula. As much as I love all the different types of wrestling we can find out online, for it to be something completely different, why not? Let's have a go and let's see what we can do with it.
Absolutely. No, I mean, that's also a brilliant point you bring up about Freddie Prinze Jr. Like you said, it's been on and off, but not even been on and off. It's just been on. It's coming soon. It's coming soon. It's coming soon. Is it coming? Who knows? Via came before it.
I was just about to make the same joke.
But I mean, we really don't know. But he's even said himself that it's taken inspiration from Lucha Underground. And I'm excited for that. I really, really am. And he's already said that he's hinted that wrestlers won't go by their names, but will go by the names of characters instead, like most people in Lucha Underground did. So it's going to be exciting. It really, really will. And yes, there's a lot of wrestling right now. Maybe too much in some people's eyes, but I think there's always room for something when it's niche. So I actually reckon it could work. I agree with you completely on that one, David. I mean, do you ever reckon Lucha Underground itself will come back, or do you reckon that ship sailed? It would have to be something different.
I think that ship has sailed now. I think for them to, if it was going to come back, it would probably come back with new management. It would probably come back with a whole new thing. Like we've seen loads of these kind of shows. Remember World of Sport when that rebooted entirely? Yeah. I know it was like 40 years difference, but it was entirely different presentation from the original. And I think the same would be the case with Lucha, obviously under a smaller period. But I don't see how you could go back to exactly the same product. It's like anything. When ECW, that bad example, that was rubbish. But, when they, promotions need to evolve and they need to adapt. I don't think Lucha Underground will come back because I think we have sailed that ship. But I'd like to see something come in and try and take its place because that's always exciting, I think, as a wrestling fan. Also, because Lucha Underground, because Lucha Underground was so cinematically driven, I think for them to reintroduce it so many years later would pretty much all their top stars are gone. You can't really bring most of those people back now, so you'd have to completely reboot the whole thing with new characters and new stories and things like that. So it would take a complete overhaul of that company, I think, to bring it back. But I'd be up for it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they just bring it if they want to do a different thing. Maybe I know MLW tried to revive it by getting and that just never really picked up. There was never any real hype around it. I think they did a bad job promoting it, perhaps, or because just nobody spoke about it when they did bring it back as Azteca Underground. I think they called it, but. It'll be interesting to see what's next for sure with, the Freddie Prinze Jr. promotion whenever it does come in the next, in the next 5 billion decades. But when it does come, I'm excited to see it. That one is for sure. But now let's move on. And David, I'm going to keep you with me for this because I'm going to ask you first about it. Because I want to talk about, who the greatest announced team of all time is. Because in case you guys didn't see, Tony Schiavone, AEW's Tony Schiavone, did an interview a couple of days ago, I think it was now, where he said, in his opinion, the greatest announced team of all time was Jerry the King Lawler and Jim Ross. And that's opinion which I think a lot of people agree with. But for me, if you're asking me who I think the greatest announced team ever is, or at least my favorite, I guess, I'm going to go for a really controversial one, guys.
Woof.
I'm going to say NXT Black and Gold, Mauro Ranallo, Nigel McGuinness, and either or Percy Watson or Beth Phoenix, because both of them I thought filled that role well. But Mauro Ranallo on commentary during Black and Gold, I mean, this guy for me, there's not been a better lead commentator in professional wrestling history. I thought he was literally perfect. Nigel McGuinness, I'm a huge Nigel McGuinness fan. He's the highlight of Collision for me personally. He truly, truly is. I mean that. And them together, it was just gold. And then you just needed somebody, a little bit bubbly, a little bit happy at times to fit in that third chair, whether it was Percy Watson or whether it was Beth Phoenix. And I thought they killed it. I mean, yes, I know, guys. I know it's going to be a controversial take. He's saying that's the greatest announced team of all time. But hey, that is my opinion. But David, I want to know yours. Who, in your opinion, is the GOAT announced team?
That's probably the first and only time that Percy Watson is going to appear in a best countdown in any capacity. No, sorry, Percy. But no, this is a fascinating question, and I thought long and hard about this one because I have loads of potential options. But this is going to surprise people given my age. I know, I'm a young man. But my pick, I think the greatest announced team of all time is Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan. And I know we're going right back to the 90s, early 90s for this, but I am currently watching through as much of 1993 as I can, which was kind of towards the tailor end of Monsoon and Heenan. They were doing, I think it was Wrestling Challenge and Primetime Wrestling and stuff like that at the time. But considering that I have to sit through Rob Bartlett on Raw commentary, who, if you don't know Rob Bartlett, is one of the worst commentators to have ever sat there. To then go over to essentially the squash show and to be so enraptured by the characters because of how good Monsoon and Heenan were. I mean, 1992 was kind of their magnum opus at the Rumble with It's Not Fair to Flair with Heenan. But throughout that entire era, from all of the old wrestling I've watched, Monsoon was the quintessential voice of that era. I love all the commentary. They do a brilliant job. For me, as much as I adore some of the more modern commentators, what I love about Heenan and Monsoon is that they had just enough differentiation with the classic wrestling formula whilst also still feeling like a cohesive team. Whereas as brilliant as Heyman and JR were, for example, they were always arguing. Whereas Heenan and Monsoon weren't always arguing. They mostly were, but there was always at a point that I never felt it got in the way of the show. Same with Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler, that the arguing never got in the way of the show like it did with Cole and Lawler. So 100% for me, as difficult as it is and as many brilliant options as there are, I'm going to go with Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Those are two very, very great commentators for sure. Of course, kind of the OG goat, if you will. Because I mean, if you asked, Jim Ross, Michael Cole, who they thought the goats are, I'm sure those are probably the names that they will say. Andy is saying Michael Cole is his goat when it comes to announcing. But Clark, who, in your opinion, is the commentary goat? The announce team. What is the greatest announce team of all time?
So I'm going to give 3 really quick opinions here. First, the best play-by-play guy of all time is Gordon Soley. Gordon Soley, go back and watch the old tape. The gravelly voice. Oh, it is iconic. He got it from minute 1, and it didn't matter who he was with. Soley and Piper. Oh, every day of my life, give it to me. It just right in my veins. It's the best. Best color commentator of all time, David's guy, part of his team, Bobby the Brain Heenan. Whether it was in WWE with Monsoon or in WCW, Bobby the Brain Heenan on color commentary was off the charts. But I have to agree with Tony Schiavone. If we're talking announced team, if we're talking announced desk, it's Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler. They're the voice of the biggest generation yet in pro wrestling. They're the most iconic calls, the memories, all of it. If we have to pick a team, it's those two. But I do have to definitely still special shout out Soley and Heenan. And there's plenty of other names. Mauro Ranallo is a great call, Ben. I just don't think the body of work was large enough to put him at the top for me.
Fair enough.
That would be my only argument against Ranallo, play-by-play guy. But of the modern era, I think he's the best play-by-play. And that is no knock on Michael Cole, because I think Michael Cole is a no-brainer Hall of Famer. I saw him mentioned in the comments, and I know I didn't mention his team. The guy is as good as anybody, but yeah, solely Heenan, and then the exact same team that Schiavone mentioned. I've got a soft spot in my heart for when we had Tenay and Schiavone on calls on Nitro. Myself, I thought they were great, even though, you'd have Heenan sometimes, you'd have Bischoff sometimes. Dusty Rhodes sometimes as the third man in that booth. So it was a little bit of musical chairs there. I think Mike Tenay and Schiavone really bounced well off of each other, shockingly, for having 2 classic play-by-play guys in the same booth. But they're not on the top of my list by any means. Just I appreciated their work growing up on late 90s WCW.
Yeah. No, I mean, those are some fantastic picks. I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. I was thinking about this earlier. If I was running a wrestling promotion right now, there was no contractual obligations elsewhere. I had all the money. I could choose whoever I wanted. The announced team, which right now, I choose.
Me and Jim Ross?
I just don't. Jim Ross is unfortunately not going to be on it in this day and age. But for me, it's as the lead commentator, Mauro Ranallo. Then I'd have Pat McAfee and Nigel McGuinness. I think.
Do you know what mine would be? Because I think this is fascinating. I don't like Pat McAfee as a commentator. He gets right on my nerves.
I love McAfee.
No,
It's him barking like a dog for Brom. Just stop it. But anyway, mine would probably be. I love the Brits, so I would probably say Schiavone, because I love Schiavone. I would have, who's not the Brit, but Schiavone, McGuinness, and William Regal.
Oh,
because I think William Regal. there was a point where, and this is just a quick honorable mention I wanted to give as well. Again, way too short to ever consider it for this list, but there was a brief period right at the start of NXT where it was William Regal and Jim Ross was a commentary team.
Oh yeah.
And nobody remembers it because it's such a short period. But they're
Great
so
stuff.
good. I do think I would love William Regal to become a commentator, and I know why he doesn't. He's perfectly fine behind the scenes where he is. But whenever he come on and do Blackpool Combat Club stuff in AEW, I would just be blown away by how brilliant a commentator he was. And I don't think we ever got to see it as much as what he could give to that area, because Regal is so good in so many places.
That's true. I just felt like you are right there. For me, it could be on that team, Regal or McGuinness. I feel like they're too similar in some ways, where they kind of play a little bit of the same role.
Yeah.
For them to be on the same desk together. But you are right, they are two phenomenal ones. And yeah, I do disagree with you on McAfee though. McAfee right now, I think he's phenomenal. He brings.
I think he spends. To me, he spends far too much time jaw-jacking with Michael Cole and being a bro fan mark to call the. But I am somebody who loves. I mean, given that my pick was Monsoon and Heenan, you can probably see the kind of commentary team that I like personally. And for me, I like a bit of that, but for me, too much of commentary gets derailed by Michael Cole and Pat McAfee going off on tangents.
No, I think that's one thing that's kind of missing in today's commentary. You mentioned like Heenan, and I mentioned Heenan as well, is the really good heel commentator. Like outside of Corey Graves, who's basically a borderline heel.
It's McGuinness.
And McGuinness, yes, sorry.
McGuinness is
as
like
well.
the best.
McGuinness is probably the best in that role currently, but we don't have one in every booth, or really even close. Which is a little bit funky because that was such a staple of like my, growing up. When Bischoff turns and he's in that booth, it's some of that. Eric Bischoff actually deserves some credit. He was hilarious in WCW. I know you're not there yet,
The
David.
reason was fans in 2016, 2017 really turned on WWE doing it. So they stopped doing it.
Yeah,
and AEW then
rubbish at
it. Exactly. That's why. But I think that's put them off doing it for the time being. But
early Taz was one of the most underrated at that role. Taz was very good in that role.
I also think
that Cole's underrated.
I think that Cole and Lawler around the turn of the 2010s killed that dynamic dead, because I mean the other way.
They were good at first, and then it got
like once you got to like the coal mine era, I think that killed the face heel commentator, because it was it was too much, and people turned on it.
Yeah, great point there. I certainly do agree. But now, David, let's move on to the show, which you're going to be reviewing tonight for Wrestling Republic. Let's talk AEW Dynamite, and I'm going to run down the card. Tonight, we have scheduled Shibata versus Huck versus Brian Keith in an FTW three-way eliminator match with the Learning Tree Chris Jericho on commentary. We've also got in maybe the most random Dynamite match of all time, Bryan Danielson versus Satnam Singh. We got Takeshita versus Matt Sydal, Orange Cassidy and Will Ospreay versus Trent and Roderick Strong. We have the Bang Bang Gang showing up. I mean, that'll be a rant, I'm sure, tomorrow. And Timeless Tony Storm teaming with Mariah May against Saraya and Harley Cameron, seemingly completely taking away from, the big Tony Storm title match this weekend. But again, that's a point for tomorrow. But that's not all, because we also have what I'm personally most excited for: Kyle O'Reilly, Malachi Black. That we were just speaking about NXT Black and Gold. That's straight out of NXT Black and Gold. Give me some of that, please. John Moxley will be in the building. Don't know why that's scheduled. And Swerve Strickland will face Nick Wayne in what I'm actually also quite excited for. But Clark, once again, they've announced a lot ahead of time for this episode, including just somebody being in the building. What are you most excited for? And are they just trying a bit too hard with these announcements?
I don't hate it. It doesn't bug me too much yet. There are times where it does, but this week, not so much, just because of the nature of the episode. I'm really excited for Nick Wayne and Swerve. That's off the charts. Like you said, Malachi Black and Kyle O'Reilly, sign me up. I'm all in on that. Of course, I'm the leader of the Hook Maniacs. So I'm excited. Hook has to regain the FTW title at this point. It's not the For the World title. We know it's not. Let's not do that anymore. Let's have Hook get the FTW belt back. It's the Hookster. He's going to be running wild. I think he wins this 3-way. I think the match is going to be better than people expect, and I hope it opens the night. That's my biggest hope and something that I'm looking forward to as well.
I certainly wouldn't be mad at that one bit. I mean, I'm fine with the matches being announced ahead of time, but like
in the building's a bit
be there.
Yeah.
John Moxley, at least, John Moxley will be in the building. Don't say that. Be like, John Moxley will speak or something like that. We'll be in the building. No. Bang Bang Gang. They're not big draws. You don't need to announce them ahead of time. Have it just happen. I understand announcing, the big, like Takeshita Side Air, I don't think should have been announced either. No. Announce the stuff which could get viewers. But I don't think you need to announce every little thing, because one of the best parts of professional wrestling is how it's unpredictable. And what is also unpredictable is that triple threat you spoke about, Clark, because I don't know if it's as simple as that. I think we might be getting Shibata Jericho again.
It's the Hookster. It's all about
the Hookster.
It's always been the Hookster.
I'm sure you guys in Throwback Thursday tomorrow will be having some great Hookamaniac discussions. I'm sure you and Chad.
My co-hosts on that show love Hook just like me.
They love him. They're both big Hookamaniacs.
They're totally Hookamaniacs. Both of them.
But I want to bring in the reviewer for AEW Dynamite, because David, I've got 2 questions for you. One, the same as Clark. Are they announcing too much? Secondly, what are you most excited for? And hell, I'll throw in a third question. Are you also a Hookamaniac?
So in answer to, I'll go through these questions in order. Are they trying too hard? They've always done this. It's annoyed me forever, but they've always done this. So this is no surprise. They've always announced too much. We had this conversation when I joined a year ago. One of the very first podcasts I did was why have they announced 400 things for Dynamite. With that said, 7 matches, which I think is the amount there are. I think there's 7 matches, far too many for a 2-hour show, especially 7 matches. Like I don't need 7 matches announced. I think this show's a bit naff, to be honest, overall. Not in terms of in-ring quality, but in terms of exposing some of the slightly naff storytelling, like the women's tag with Tony and Mariah versus Saraya and Harley Cameron. That's the 3rd week of this story. It's not gone anywhere. The Will Ospreay and Orange Cassidy tag is really good fun, but they could have built the fact that those two were going to team last week. They didn't really do that. You've got Nick Wayne and Swerve Strickland will be a great match, but they have such a rich history. Nick Wayne and Swerve Strickland. It was Nick Wayne's first match, all the Defy stuff. And the early AEW stuff, nothing was mentioned about that on Dynamite, which baffled me. Danielson and Satnam Singh. All right. I love Jeff Jarrett. I'll get to see Jeff Jarrett. Yay. But yeah, like Takeshita Seidel doesn't need to be on the show. It's just stuff like that. It's just odd. So I'm gonna say Nick Wayne and Swerve Strickland, because that's the match I'm most excited for in ring, because they're brilliant. But for me, this is a weak card in terms of, for a go-home show, it's a lot of stuff that's just exposed the minor problems with AEW storytelling recently that's not concerned the brilliant stuff the Elite are doing, who, as far as I'm aware, none of them are on this show in terms of matches. So then you just get the rest of them, and you kind of see, that match could have been booked better. That was a weak story. And you start to reconsider things, because for me, at the moment, it's... I didn't realize it until I looked at this card, but there are some real holes in AEW storytelling right now. And answer for question 3, yes, I am a Hookamaniac. I do like Hook quite a bit, and he is going to win the triple threat, because he's going to eliminate. Because it's elimination. So Brian Keith will go first, and then it'll be Shibata and Hook. And I do think Hook will win, because why extend this longer? But Jericho's been entertaining recently, so good stuff.
David,
I'll tell you why, David, right? They're going to extend it longer because everybody, all the viewers, have more to learn from Chris Jericho. So they need to extend it, much, much longer. We need to learn off the learning tree. But
this is a huge honor, though, David. I actually want to bestow upon you on today's show. I'm going to officially name you the leader of the UK Hookamaniacs. And so, Hookamania is going to continue to run wild. I've never been more tickled in my life on the show than to have a fellow Hookamaniac in the building with me.
I mean, he can't
It's
get
just-
promos to save his life, but he is I do.
It's gonna run wild.
He's gonna run wild on you. I mean, listen, I'm excited for the episode, but I mean, it could like I could be waking up 6 a.m. tomorrow to film Allison analysis, and I might be going on a rant about it. I might be getting more hate comments. Because I feel like I'm either gonna be pleasantly surprised about this show, or I'm gonna hate it. We're gonna have
It'll be
to
a good
wait to
show.
find out.
I say it'd be a good show from an in-ring perspective because they usually are. But it's just I'm just looking at this card and thinking there's just small story like telling problems that just add up in different places. But I'm sure the Elite are going to do something really fun because it's the best thing on Dynamite right now. So
It is.
That's the other thing. They're meant to be like the EVP storyline that they're, the ones who are on the intro and everything, that, that it's all about them. Why haven't they announced themselves for this show? Like, that's another, like, small
I
little
think
thing
they're
as well.
kind of acting like they're acting like they are Tony Khan. I think
No,
in a
I
weird
know.
way, they're doing the things that people blame Tony for on the internet, like to get heat from it. Like, I think that's kind of wild.
They are with
in-
some stuff. Not
like,
in
I'm
some
hoping-
stuff.
No, but if
Not
they
with
come
this.
out on that intro today and make a joke about the announcements, about announcing so many
Well, they
things,
won't, because they've done it like
it'd
weeks.
be hysterical.
It
it'd be
would be.
so
They should
funny.
do it, but I don't think they will, because I think this is just how they've done things, like to David's point. But on that note, guys, we're gonna have to. I mean, you're gonna find out all our opinions on this because you can see David's opinions on this in the official Wrestling Republic review for it tomorrow. You can see mine on Allison analysis on the YouTube video, which is very unofficial. I just ramble on about some stuff, and then some of it lands, some of it does not. And you can hear Clark's thoughts tomorrow on Throwback Thursday with Anthony Ricciardi and Shard. I'm sure all three will hopefully be exciting. And thank you to everybody who's commented on all platforms today. We will see you guys tomorrow. Later start time for the daily, 11 p.m. UK, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. We will see you all then. Peace.